Okay, what about spells? Well, if you put in Wiki Team Fortress, there's a number of things that come up. Fancy spellbook, Halloween spells, magic spells, spellbook magazines, a spellbook page, unfilled fancy spellbook. What we really are interested in are in the Halloween spells that have come about in order to make items look in a particular way. Of the history, Halloween spells such as the headless horseshoes were added to the game in 2012. There were so-called Halloween spell potions in 2013, and the effects were only visible in the Halloween and full moon events. The Halloween spells were made no longer tradable. Halloween spell potions were enabled, and they were actually tradable in 2014. However, the Tough Break update, all that changed, and a lot of people who had these spells and had them available to be put on items for trade, they found that when their inventories were updated, the spells were simply removed, and there's a lot of bad blood for some individuals towards Steam over this. I think this spells definitely added something extra, and they're another dimension, like an unusual is permanently associated with that, but I mean it's a one way in which you can give an effect to another item that is not unusual for potentially less of a cost, also even given an effect to a collector's or something else. So that's the history of spells. Now there are of course items where people have already put the spells on, and these are some of the items that I'll be talking about. I'm going to look for a couple of them, such as spells on a Bill's hat. Sorry about Chicken in the background. I think he's trying to sing opera or something. And also I'm just going to have a look through my own inventory and see if any items I have spells on. I'll also talk to Chicken later about maybe having a look at some of his spells. This was actually what the item looked like. They had Halloween spell, Headless Horseman shoes. On the TF2 community market, there are 611 Bill's hats and 59 vintage Bill's hats, starting at $21.62. The vintage Bill's hat, you can see that they've been going sort of up roughly a year ago, up, down, and now sort of around about the $22–23 range. I guess the question is this justified? You've got someone selling a Bill's hat for $237.66, well, good luck with that. And some people, sort of in the $170s of dollars. And if you actually look at these Bill hats, you can see here, no spells, no spells, no spells, no spells, no spells. So really, the most expensive ones are basically, let's say the word con jobs. So I guess what would I do? I'm looking for a vintage Bill hat. So what I'm probably going to do is look for at the lower end of the price range and see which ones have spells, because spells are probably the things that are going to set this hat apart. Second cheapest hat for $22.33 has got corpse grey footprints active in Halloween. So you can go to some full moon servers and things and still have these footprints active. So that's a relatively cheap hat, and you got these people asking $200 off for a Bill's hat, and they don't have any of these on it. So that's probably one of the better vintage Bill hats you're going to get. So then I've looked through all the other Bill's hats, and that's the only Bill's hat I can find with a spell on, and yet it was the second cheapest. Not surprisingly, that's probably going to be sold very quickly. But just to be aware that the most expensive of an item is not necessarily the best, and have a careful look at the effect and whether it has spells on. I got for $22.33, and this is the only one with a spell out of the whole lot. So that's my vintage Bill's hat, and that's it. So the basically is look at look, the only thing that's going to differentiate them is if it has a colour you like. Well, this is painted in green. I'm not particularly fond of that, but I can always work with it or change it. But the spells, that's the only spell that I could find in the Bill's hat. And obviously that might be worth more to somebody later, because spells have been literally choked off. They were very common things. A lot of people had them on hold, ready to put on other items. And there was some update where people just had them, let's say use the word stolen, but it basically was stolen from them from Steam when they updated. So yeah, just to be look out for spells. I'm going to also have a look in the Bill's hats, because there's probably some interesting spells there too, so I'll have a look now. Hats get even worse. Some complete whack job has put one on for $1,150 US. Now that is just completely stock standard in Bill's hat, absolutely nothing special about it. And similarly there's a couple above for around the $500 mark. Now these Bill's hats, that's nothing, they're just stock standard. So these guys here are just looking out for people who are crazy, you know. Again, just painted, no spells. You know, these ones in the top things are just, they're only worth a couple of keys, if that. You know, $69, no spells, you know, just crap. So just be careful with this community market. You get these guys that are just, I don't know what they're doing, but you know, $157 here, you know, but the other ones are much more expensive. And you know, I can't, well, there is one spell there at $45. That's the only thing, that's the only hat that might be worth in any way more than the others. But $45 is also steep because it's not vintage. Going down to $26, well, that's not a bad one because it's got 2 spells on it, and that's something that I'm pretty interested in actually. That is also a good one because it's got 2 spells in it. It's only got 1 spell in, it's $32. So there's only four hats all up with spells, and none of them have been at the upper tier. But again, these are all these. There's so many Bill's hats. It's just it's endless. Now, if we went down here and we had look at a couple of Bill's hats that are closer in, like say $5 or something, and these are $4. I mean, you're not. I think most people that have spells are not going to sell them for $4 or $5. And you know, basically, really, from just looking around, there's not really any spells. They seem to come in about the $20-something mark. Again, let's have a look at a few more of these. But the overwhelming consensus is these are just routine Bill's hats. I think people with spells are going to want a little bit more for them. But you've got these guys that have got hats with nothing on that are trying to sell them for a lot more than they're worth. So, you know, it's very, you're probably not going to get a hat with a spell under it for under $10, I would imagine. Let's have a look here. Yeah, I mean, we'll go along here a bit. So down at 9, up to 19, there are no spells. So the first one's the first 200 of them. So the first 200 hats that go up to about almost $6, none of those have any spells on. So I mean, my thoughts were that the first lot of spells will be coming in around yeah, they're not. There's no spells there. If you get around 26, it's just again. You get some painted ones with no spells. So I'll just keep on going up to a few. Sorry. And in terms of the spells, when you're going to get them is going to be like, I think $20 something really. I think probably quicker to go downwards. Anyway, I'll search through and see when we start to get some spells. So around the $22 mark, there's a couple with gangrene footprints. As we go further down, I mean, it's all up out of these 600 hats. I think I can only find about maybe a dozen with spells on, so they're not common, and most of them are sitting around the $20 mark upwards. There's nothing below. Anyone with spells seems to think, know what they're worth. So I'll probably go back to here and see if I can find those spells around the I think they're around here somewhere. That's probably the best value there. So that one and that one. Rotten footprint, rotten orange, but look at that, you get team spirit footprints and die job, or spectral and team spectral spectrum and team, so those and maybe the rotten orange. But I'm deciding about if I was going to get one, which one would I get. But I mean, these are the pick of the litter, as it were, and they're $26 and $28 respectively. And this is a problem. I mean, you've got all these other more expensive hats which are effectively, $1,150. What the hell, So really, the only thing that differentiates these hats apart is if it's a colour that you want, or if it has spells on it.